Welcome back. You're watching The Money Show on ET Now. Well, let's switch gears and talk about spending in our Spend with TMS segment. Yesterday, the RBI released a whole host of announcements. Of course, apart from the macros, the governor did announce a series of announcements that would make life simpler for people who use digital modes of payment, who use prepaid instruments, all the fintech customers. This by enhancing certain limits, by allowing interoperability. So if you are perplexed as to which prepaid instruments would come under all of these announcements that the RBI has made, let's introduce on the show Manoj Chopra, VP and Head Products and Innovation of Infrasoft Tech. Manoj, thank you so much for taking our time. So to start with, which category of fintech customers do all the RBI announcements affect? What are the examples of the prepaid instruments that the RBI was talking about? If you could talk about that.
Yeah, hi Mubina, and good evening everyone, and thank you for having me on the show. There are a number of prepaid instruments that exist in the market today. So these are mobile wallets that you typically have on your mobile phone, and this would include the likes of Paytm, Oxygen, Freecharge, etc. You would then have card-based instruments, which are normally issued by banks. You would have gift cards, that ones that are issued by the likes of Shoppers Stop, Amazon, Flipkart. And then you've got meal cards, like those issued by Sodexo. And then you've got cards issued for mass transit, like FASTag. Now, the RBI directive on interoperability covers all of the above. Okay, so just to give you a brief, there was an RBI directive in October of 2017 where there were broad level guidelines given in terms of how interoperability had to be achieved. And this included a three-phase plan where the first phase was supposed to cover wallet-based payments. The second one was between cards and between banks and wallets. And the third one was for card-based prepaid instruments. There was a much more detailed guideline that was further given in October of 2018, where this guideline was much more detailed in terms of defining a grievance redressal mechanism, dispute resolution mechanism, how settlement would happen, the safety and security aspects, etc., etc. And during this time, the interoperability was made voluntary for prepaid issuers. Now coming back yesterday, like you said, there was the latest announcement by RBI and the latest RBI directive. It was noted by RBI that it's been more than 2.5 years now, and there has been no significant progress made on the interoperability front. And hence, RBI has now taken a call to make interoperability mandatory for prepaid payment issuers. Mind you, this is mainly for full KYC accounts, and in order to have a full KYC account, you need to have a certain minimum balance in your account. And to incentivize full KYC accounts, RBI has also increased the limit of what you can have in your wallet account from 1 lakh to 2 lakh. So in that sense, I think it's a welcome move by RBI.
Understood. So, Manoj, you mentioned several prepaid instruments, your Paytm, etc., and then maybe like a card from an Amazon, and then I have a debit card as well lying. So, when you say interoperability, what exactly do you mean by that?
So, good question. I think let's define interoperability. So, typically, what would happen is a merchant would have a tie-up with one of the wallet providers. So, for example, a merchant could have a tie-up with an Amazon Pay. And when that happens, a merchant only then accepts payments from Amazon Pay. So if I have an Amazon Pay wallet, I'd be able to pay the merchant. Otherwise, I would not be able to pay the merchant. A more relevant example could be cab aggregators. So you know that, for example, Ola and Uber. Uber typically takes, accepts Paytm, and Ola takes, Ola Money or Ola Pay. Now, if I had a different kind of wallet, and I wanted to pay one of these cab aggregators, I would currently not be able to do that. But what interoperability facilitates now for me is to be able to pay these cab aggregators or the merchant that was accepting Amazon Pay. Now I'd be able to use any of my wallets to pay some of these cab aggregators and merchants. So in that sense, it's very good, and customers have a much broader access to a number of merchants. What also happens that because now the wallets are interoperable, there is a level playing field between all these mobile operators, and obviously now there is going to be a much more fiercer and a harder competition between these wallet providers. And when there is competition, you obviously need to have a differentiator. And that differentiator could be customer service. That could mean more cashbacks. That could mean special offers. So net, with the interoperability, customers tend to gain a lot. It's a complete win-win for customers.
So, Manoj, I'm going to ask you, I think from what you've told me, this is bringing a level playing field for all of these, prepaid instruments and these fintech companies. So as a customer, if I have to choose, or let's say, Manoj, if you have to choose, what prepaid instrument you would like to take, since now there's a level playing field, right? So what would be the features that you would look at then to pick out?
Yeah, so again, I would look at purely, from a customer, as I said, because there's competition now, and I would typically look at the level of customer service that a prepaid provider would provide me with. And also, obviously there are other things like cashback, special offers that would be there, and that would then make me choose one of these wallet providers. But customer service, I think, is something that would be of utmost importance here, Mubina.
Customer service, I suppose security as well. We'll get to that in just a bit. Now, we understand that limits have been enhanced as well from 1 lakh to 2 lakh. If you could explain what that means and how does that as well make life easier for the customer?
Yeah, so if you look at all of these directives and where we are heading at, we are moving towards a scenario where a wallet is almost equal to a bank account. Now, with a bank account, typically, I should be able to make any kind of purchase. And so, for example, if I would want to pay my college fees, if I would want to pay my rent, if I want to shop for an expensive mobile on an e-commerce website, I should be able to do that. And if there is a lower limit, obviously that would then be a deterrent for me to be able to use these wallets. And the advantage with wallets is also that wallets typically provide a much more better checkout experience than any of the other payment instruments. For example, if I compare that with cards or any other instrument, a wallet would typically provide a much more better customer experience. And with this customer experience, if an enhanced limit is added onto that obviously goes on to make wallet a much more acceptable instrument for customers. So an increased limit definitely would go a long way in making sure wallets are more accepted.
Okay, Manoj, now there are two new announcements as well. RTGS, NEFT will be allowed with these instruments, and even cash withdrawals. So how would this work? Would we all be given a card of sorts, for the next time we download the Paytm app? How would it essentially work?
Yeah, so you're right. As part of these directives that have been announced today, there has been NEFT and RTGS, which has also been allowed. Cash withdrawals have also been allowed. Earlier, cash withdrawals were not allowed for non-bank PPIs. When I say non-bank PPIs, these are the likes of Freecharge and Oxygen and Ola Money, which are not banks. These are just purely prepaid instrument providers. Now, what happens is, as I said, in order to make a wallet as good as a bank account, some of these things are required. Now, if I summarize all of these directives, now you've got wallets which are now acceptable at multiple merchant establishments. You've got interoperability. You've got wallets which will then enable you to roll out cards. So you can have cards which can be issued to you, which will be connected to one of the card networks like Visa, MasterCard, RuPay. You then have a facility of cash withdrawal, and you have NEFT and RTGS. So, for example, I would want to pay my college fees and I would need an NEFT and RTGS for that. I would be able to do that with my wallet account now. So, net, all that put together, wallet becomes equal to a bank account. Also, it's very interesting to note that typically I would want to have cash with me only if I know that I would have no avenues to withdraw cash. So, for example, if I go to a merchant establishment, I go shopping, and if I know there's an ATM around, I would not then withdraw cash. The fact that cash withdrawal is available on a wallet now would now discourage me to withdraw cash because I know that cash would be available. And then when I go shopping and I know digital modes of payments are accepted, I would then obviously use the digital modes of payment. So net, all that put together, where we are heading at as an industry, we would have wallet which would be as good as a bank account. Today, if you look at theoretically, there are a lot of customers which are not comfortable using bank accounts because I don't want to open my bank account to the internet, to the e-commerce world, because I feel there is a risk of fraud. Now, if I have a wallet account, I would transfer a limited amount of money to my wallet account, and then that is the only amount of risk that I am faced with right now. And hence, that then also helps in increasing the digital penetration or the financial penetration in the country. Again, as I said, it's a welcome move by RBI, and NEFT RTGS also then helps in enabling the wallet account to become like a bank account.
Manoj, of course, the other big issue is with respect to security because, in this last 1 year, during the lockdown especially, we've seen, I think all of us have seen some sort of cybercrime, or just have been saved from, any kind of cybercrime if we have been lucky. So do you foresee any sort of security issues that may come about with all of these changes with respect to interoperability? How could customers as well ensure that they have a safe experience when using digital payments?
Yeah, it's a very relevant question, Mubina. And if you look at the RBI directives or the RBI master directives that have been issued, there is a very, very detailed framework there are a very detailed, elaborate guidelines for risk monitoring and for fraud prevention. And these includes the things like velocity checks. These includes things like two-factor authentication, where you will be able to use OTPs or grids like you use with bank accounts. You'll be able to have cap on transactions that you can do in a day or in a month, or the value of transactions that you can do in a day or in a month. There is alerts that would need to be sent out for adding a beneficiary or for carrying out any transaction. There is also a very, very elaborate mention of transaction monitoring and fraud prevention frameworks that these prepaid providers would have to put in place. Also, there is audits, yearly audits that they need to carry out to be able to make sure that these systems are completely secure. There is also a very, very, very detailed grievance redressal mechanism and a dispute resolution framework that has been put forth in these directives, which then help the customer get that confidence in these instruments. There is also, customers have this fear that if I'm using a wallet account, there could be unlimited liability to me if there is a fraud that happens. There is also a very detailed mention of this in the directive, where it very clearly says that if there is no fault on account of the customer, then there is almost no liability that the customer, not almost, there is no liability that a customer would have to undergo or face. And there are very detailed timelines given for settling of these fraud cases as well. So while there is everything put in place to ensure that there is that customer confidence, it is also up to us to make sure that we don't disclose sensitive information like a PIN or an OTP or a password to the outside world. And obviously, if you end up disclosing any of these, then the liability is with you. Hence, there is a complete elaborate framework that has been put in place, but we need to be careful as customers when we are transacting online.
All right. Well, Manoj, I think we leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining us and, just simplifying how things will work from here on for customers. It's a very interesting thing indeed, and it's a new experience for all of us using digital payments. Thank you for that.
Great. Thanks.
And with that, I think we'll have to take a very short break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.